After 11 weeks in court, we rested our case against Donald Trump, the Trump Organization, and other defendants. We brought this case after our 4-year investigation revealed that Donald Trump committed repeated and persistent fraud and unjustly enriched himself, his family, and his business. Before this trial even began, the judge ruled in our favor and found that Donald Trump did engage in years of significant financial fraud we uncovered. Throughout this trial, we revealed the full extent of that fraud. We introduced extensive evidence and questioned more than 24 witnesses. We heard from Donald Trump and his family, his co-defendants, his current and former employees at the Trump Organization, his accountants and associates at financial institutions, loan underwriters, real estate professionals, and experts. And their testimony illustrated years of fraud and baseless valuations to inflate Donald Trump's net worth. And we showed that Donald Trump's financial statements were used to get better loan terms, tax breaks, and a host of other economic benefits. Next month, we will return to court to present our closing argument. I'm confident in our case and that justice will prevail. No matter how powerful you think you are or
how much money you think you have.
Everyone is equal under the law, even Donald Trump.
Okay.
After 11 weeks...
Look, the reality is I was in a very, very bad mood. I'll tell you why after I show you the next intro video clip, because it relates to the vlog that I just put out today. Oh my goodness, I was in a bad mood and I wanted to cry. In fact, I may have shed a tear or two today, but for purely superficial reasons. And that video is enough to make you laugh and realize, holy shit. Now, I played it on Friday. Was it Friday or Thursday? Played it last week. But that's, I have, my go-to movie to feel happy is Happy Gilmore. My go-to YouTube clip, if it's not a dog video, it's going to be that video from now on. Locals and Rumble not working. Let's just make sure before we get any further that we're not dealing with someone who's trying to distract me. We're working on, and we are working it on Locals. Not Locals, Rumble. What the hell's my problem? Still a little distracted from, I'll tell you why, people. It's so bloody irritating. My head is just in too many places at one time. All right, we're on vivabarneslaw.locals.com. People, if you haven't noticed, I am making a concerted effort to put out more of the original old school car vlogs. Partly because I want to amortize the new vehicle that we... People have been asking, we miss the old vlogs, and I'm thinking, I need to get one of them overseas video editors so that I could have someone do this instead of me doing it on my iPhone, which is driving me a little crazy, making me be in too many places at one time. But I'm going to put out more vlogs, and I'm going to make an effort to do so. It will not come at the expense of the live streams. I'm trying to figure out how to tinker with it, because when you put out live streams on YouTube and then shorter videos, it messes up the algorithm. I don't even really care about the algorithm anymore. So you might have noticed that I've been trying to do my best and have been successfully accomplishing that goal of putting out more vlogs. This weekend, for example, I put out 2 car vlogs, one of which dealt with that particular video clip. I put that one out yesterday, where people were saying, Viva, you misunderstood. When she said the judge, before this trial even began, Judge Engeron ruled in our favor and declared that Trump committed years of financial fraud we uncovered. Oh, I understood that, people. But I put out a video, a vlog, explaining why that's hardly any defense to anything. And when she says, before this trial even began, she's telling you, people. So that was the vlog from yesterday. The vlog from today, because I read an article from Blacklock's, at least a portion of it, because I'm not behind their paywall yet, and I don't want to give it away for free to everybody. I read an article on Friday that I say is shocking, but not shocking, but shocking, but not shocking, but shocking. And it is this one right. How do I not know where this is? I had it. Hold on. I'm going to play it. I wanted to play the video and just... It's an article from Blacklock's. I mean, we knew all this stuff, that the government was paying social media influencers to push COVID propaganda. We knew it. We knew it because they budgeted for it. Remember that $153 million in COVID advertising? And then we would see that they had influencers Okay, I got the vlog right here. Let's just do this here. Tell me if you hear that music. I hear music. And it's coming from that computer. Oh, I'm going to get that in a second. Damn kids are playing Roblox on that computer. All right, we're going to get to that in a second. And then we're going to get to the intro stuff. We're going to get to the disclaimers. But for now, let me just show you. Shocking. Here it is. Back to the Clark vlog. Boom shakalaka. Look at that crazy guy.
One man's influencer is another person's outright government
paid propaganda.
So this is all...
Eva Fry, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler, and my wife asked me to go get some bagels, and I'm like, yeah, sure, honey, I'll go get some bagels. And
Sneak in a car vlog while I'm doing it.
You might hear some noise. For some reason, ow, jeez Louise, these, what do they call it? A murder of crows has decided to install themselves in the tree above me. All right, an amazing story coming out of Canada.
We'll get to the story. The story is from Blacklocks about social media influencers being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars by the government and then failing to disclose that they were paid for COVID propaganda posts. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, $682,000 to various social media influencers. I started looking into it, as did the internet. You know, they put up the list of the names of these social media influencers that the government has paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to, and the internet being what it is, we start looking into it. And a lot of the accounts, at least on Twitter, are dead accounts. Many of them have zero, and I say not zero, virtually no following, which doesn't make them influencers. It actually makes them bot propaganda accounts that the government is hijacking and then using as outlets to push government propaganda. In the vlog, I go through how the government military saw COVID, the article that the military saw COVID as an opportunity to test propaganda on unsuspecting Canadians. The Canadian government tracking 33 million cell phone mobile devices to see where people were going during COVID. Were they respecting the lockdown? You know, and if they weren't respecting the lockdown, you remember green zone, yellow zone, red zones? I don't know if they had this where everyone else who's watching was, but in our country, in Canada and in Quebec, they broke things down into zones based on the number of COVID cases. Green being you're good to go out of your houses and go to stores. Yellow being risky. And red zones where they had too many COVID cases. The red zones couldn't travel into the yellow or green zones. This is not science fiction, Handmaid's Tale, whatever that zone 9. What's that? There's a science fiction movie. I forget what it's called. They were tracking cell phone data, cell phone mobile devices, to see if Canadians were respecting these lockdown zone restrictions. And I guess if they weren't, well, then they were going to siphon hundreds of thousands of dollars to influencers to go to Twitter and say, respect your zone. If you're in a red zone, don't go into a yellow zone and save lives. So some of these accounts had no following whatsoever, which makes them not influencer accounts, bot government propaganda, B-O-T. Others had a few thousand followers. That's still not influencers as far as I'm concerned. They did not disclose to the public that they were being paid for these COVID posts. District 9, thank you very much. They didn't disclose that they were being paid for the posts. One of them, one of the accounts was I believe a drag queen. A drag, I don't know which way it goes if it's drag, but was a drag, someone who participated in Canadian Drag Race Season 3. Put out a tweet saying, I'm involved in my first scandal. Yeah, I got paid by the government to talk about my specific COVID experience and why I chose to get the jab. And I asked that person a number of questions. Did you tell people that? I mean, it's like, it's fine that you did it, I guess, if you told people it was a paid post. Did you tell them? I have yet to get an answer. Let me pull up that tweet and we can see that account. So a number of these accounts I noticed were Indigenous. A number of these accounts were related to the trans drag community. And a number of these accounts were like mommy accounts. There were ethnic minority accounts. And the government is basically siphoning Canadian taxpayer dollars without disclosing it, because according to the Blacklocks report, to disclose it obviously would have been very embarrassing. This was one of the accounts. And I don't put this account on blast out of malice to the account. You know, in Canada, I don't believe that we yet have mandatory lawful requirements to disclose a paid sponsorship. I think in the States it's a little different. there are ethics. There's basic ethics to things. You know, if you're getting paid to push a message, you damn well let your followers know that, because otherwise, I mean, I don't know how you know, it's not the end of the world, but it's unethical. There's unethical in terms of the creator or the influencer, and then there's criminal from the level of the government. Fraud, testing propaganda on citizens, I believe, should be, you know, probably declared illegal. Chelazon Leroux, Canada's Drag Race Season 3, Indigenous and Thriving. A few of them were Indigenous. Bookings Media, whatever. So I asked this account. These are the lower level participants in this scheme. The scheme is government corruption. And I would have DM'd them if I could have DM'd this person. I don't know who it is. If I could have. I said, I'm not able to DM you. I've just got a few questions. And if anybody thinks that there's any malicious intent in here, go ahead, impute whatever intent you want to be. These are pretty standard, pretty obvious questions that any independent journalist, media, any honest person will want answered, especially the ones who I wasn't influenced by this person's post. I was more influenced by other familial pressure, guilt, so to speak. But anyone who might have actually been duped following their influencers who were telling them a message that was paid for by the government without telling them. These are pretty standard questions. Who approached you at the time? Very interesting. Who in the government went to these influencers and said, hey, you want some money? Hey, little boy, you want some money to spread some government propaganda? I got lots of money. I got endless money. I got taxpayers. Who approached you? Who was your point of contact? Name. Was it that bumbling idiot, former Minister of Heritage? What's his name? Oh, for goodness sake, I'm going to forget his name. The guy with the beard who climbed the CN Tower. Was it that bumbling, corrupt idiot? Was it, or do they have like, you know, agents within the government to contact? Have your agent contact my agent. Did you approach the government? Like, do these people say, hey guys, you got any of that sweet taxpayer dollars to spread government propaganda? Or do they contact your agent? Did you disclose at the time you were being paid for the post? Because we'll get to the long story short, that fact is astutely missing. And how much were you paid? The influencers are the pawns in this. This is the I don't know, like the post explanation. Long story short, I was paid by Health Canada to talk about my COVID experience and why I chose to take the vaccine, not to force anybody else. This is no different than people getting paid to promote any other government program, education, healthcare, economics. And you'd do it for a bag. What does that mean? Is that a bag of weed? Like, I'm not joking. I'm not trying to be glib, facetious. A bag of chips? Is this an expression that the children use these days, the youth, to talk about drugs? Like a dime bag? I want to know who did it. I want to know who was approached, who was in charge of it. Did they go through the agents? Is this an actual government program where they have their agents who then go to other agents? I know so much that I don't tell people because I'm a bloody vault. And there are people who have there's people who I've communicated with. The world will never know it. And it would be great for clout. It would be great for drama. But it's not who I am. And it's why people feel very comfortable talking to me privately. I know of talent who have been approached and offered thousands of dollars to pitch propaganda. And from what I understand, they go through the agents. These talents, these influencers, they have agents. And the government approaches their agents and said, I know this for a fact. Would they be game to do it? And any talent with a lick of ethics and a lick of self-decency would say, go F yourself, Mr. Government. I don't need the money no one needs money that badly. Oh, is it a bag of cash? Maybe. I thought it's funny where my mind goes. I thought it might have been a dime bag of marijuana, like as if to say you do it for a little dime bag of marijuana or a bag of chips. The first thought was bag of chips. Barnes, where are you? He's coming. Don't worry about it. So that's the vlog I put out today. Now, here, this is the rules in Canada coming from a law firm, Smart and Bigger, people. It's funny. This was the law firm I wanted to get a job at when I was coming out of law school. And they talk about the golden rules in Canada. Disclose any material connections and no misleading marketing. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Disclose your financial connections. Yeah, the government is paying me to talk about my COVID experience and why I, as a young individual, chose to get a jab. And I would ask this person, like, they're as much a victim as everybody else. They just happen to have profited a little bit from it. Did when you got the jab, drag season race 3 person, did they tell you the risks? Did you know that the government knew that they were mass producing shit faster than they could produce with quality and jabbing it into your arms? Did you know that? Did you actually do it? Is the other question. Did you get a real shot? The level of propaganda being pushed by AI is off the charts. There's also, there's AI or bots. Let's just, sorry, I didn't mean to bring that one up. So that was the news of the weekend. And I'm going to try to get a reporter from Blacklock's on. And then I'll just get to what the heartbreaking part of the day. It's material objects. It doesn't matter. I put the top down on my new office just to protect myself from the bird shit, which actually still got in. And then I started driving and forgot that I hadn't latched it down, and it popped up at relatively high speed while I was driving, and I've done damage. No one got hurt. It could have been worse, but it's the type of thing where when I was growing up, we grew up with this story time, and then I'll get to the standard disclaimers. Story time. My dad got a motorcycle when he was having his midlife crisis, and he's driving it back from the motorcycle dealership, whatever, on a trailer hitch, down some country roads, and the hitch dislodged and the bike crashed into the ditch. Not just once, but twice on the same drive home. And I remember my mom saying, well, your dad was just despondent for the rest of the day, sitting there crying. And, he never got to ride the motorcycle. And it might very well have saved his life because motorcycles are notoriously dangerous. Oh, yeah. Any video of it? No, it would not have been a YouTube hit. Nobody wants to see Viva cry. Nobody got hurt. It's not like, it'll just be minor damage and may probably replace the entire soft top. Oh, but I think I might have a claim against Ford because there's no warning to let you know that the latches are. How hard would it be? There was no beep, beep, beep. Did you check the latches, Viva, you dumbass, because you're spending too much time distracted about the state of the world. Why'd you do it? Just take the bird crap. It doesn't matter. It's just a soft top. It can be replaced. Oh, hold on. What does he say? Story time is not what it used to be. Tales are now scattered everywhere. Okay, that's a joke. Okay, Barnes is in the backdrop. What I was going to say, you all know the ritual, the routine here. If you don't know who I am, welcome to the channel. I'm going to bring back the vlogs, the car vlogs. If anybody has a good, affordable, time-sensitive video editor, I might be in the market. The other question was, we're going to end on YouTube and go over to Rumble, the free speech platform. I'll post the stream either in its entirety or clips in the coming days. Everybody should also attend the vivabarneslaw.locals.com after party because we go to the party there after Rumble, answer all of the $5 tips and more. So, it's a wonderful community to be a part of. $7 a month, $70 a year, but it's going up in January 1st. So you might want to get in now and get locked in, people. Get locked in, get grandfathered in, because it is going to go up to $10 a month, $100 a year as of January 1st. And that is all for the intros. No legal advice, no election fortification advice, no medical advice. Actually, before I bring Barnes in, Barnes sends me an email. He says, I got a graph that we need to put on a shirt. And I'm like, let's see it. And it is damn good. Look at this. People, I don't spend enough time focusing on our merchandise. You go to vivafry.com. Look at this. If you can't see, it's Barnes as Santa Claus. Have you been good? And I think the answer to that question is we have all been very good here. And we're going to have a good one tonight. Okay, I'm bringing in the Barnes. 3, 2, 1. Boom shakalaka. Robert, sir, how goes the battle?
It is good. For those that, we got the shirts, we got the mugs, we got the hoodies. We'll have some more. We got, lady fit shirts and all that jazz and additional stuff as it goes along.
What are tumblers?
You want a last-second Christmas gift, you can give that, or you can gift a subscription to yourself or others at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Those that get the $7 membership, which is less than $6 a month if you get the annual subscription, you're grandfathered in when you use your credit or debit card so that you always get that rate. Even if inflation goes to the moon, you still get the discounted rate. There's people on our platform that have the $5 a month, which is like less than $4 a month annual rate. that got grandfathered in early. So if you need a last-second Christmas gift, not a bad place to go.
Now, the audio, you came in a little hot, but I think it's good now. So everyone says audio is loud. Barnes is coming in hot. Barnes is louder than Viva. Okay, so I'm going to tinker with it just a bit, just so we get this all edit mic settings, and I'll bring Barnes down to a 115. Okay, there we go. That should be good. Yeah, hold on. Let's see this here. Barnes, as economy tanks, we may need legal guidance for living out of our cars. Any references for each state? How would you recommend states address? Oh, it's Bidenomics, people. It's working great, and if you think it isn't, Robert, we got so much to talk about.
And this is the last Sunday show of the year, because next Sunday is Christmas Eve. The Sunday after that is, I think, is New Year's Eve. So our next Sunday show will be 3 weeks from now, and it will be in 2024.
Just so everyone doesn't go into total freak out, I think it's a sacrilege to do one on Christmas Eve. So maybe I'll still be going live, people, but we will not have the Viva Barnes Sunday night show for the next 2 consecutive Sundays, unless we do something special for New Year's Day.
And last Monday will be the last What Are the Odds show of the year with Richard Barris, the People's Pundit, on Rumble and YouTube and on Locals. And that will be tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then I'll still be doing some bourbons at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. But that'll be it for the otherwise for the rest of the year. I hope everybody has happy holidays, safe travels, all that jazz. Now, people gave us these cool gifts before, but I have no idea how I use them. These are
Robert,
like Hanukkah things or something, right?
Yeah, flip it over here. Let me see this. It goes Nes Gadol Haya Sham. You get the Nun Gimel Hey Shamish Sheen. And so you spin it. This is actually just like a very, very old form of gambling. Well, no, if you could spin it on the top, Robert, that's a skill that a lot of people don't have. So you spin it, and then it ends on one of the letters, and you gamble on which of the 4 letters it's going to be.
Hey, I like that. That's even better gift.
What are the odds? One in 4.
Yeah,
and,
there you go. Perfect.
This is an interesting tidbit for those who probably know this already. It says Nes Gadol Hayasham, which means a great miracle happened there for all dreidels outside of Israel. And the ones in Israel have Nes Gadol Hayapo, and they have a different letter because the miracle happened here, not there. So,
yeah, I was briefly arguing with Russians with Attitude, who's a classic Russian, very Russian perspective, fascinating, a lot of great history, a lot of that information, but he was trying to make the point that somehow Israel wasn't a real country historically. And I was like, think of all the countries in the world and their population's historic relationship to the land they currently govern. And tell me which country in the world has a stronger historic tie than Jews to where Israel is. I was like, Russians, have they always been in all parts of Russia that currently exist? Many parts of Russia they only had for a few centuries by comparison. That's why I was getting a kick out of these people that pretend that somehow Israel is the colonizer, right? When returning to their old historic land that used to be run by other colonizers. Unless you're the Palestinians, and then you're so delusional, you think you're related to the Greek sea peoples, the Philistines. They believe the nuttiest stuff. Even Scott Ritter is busy discrediting himself these days, sadly, with his latest let's get rid of Israel and have the Jews governed by Hamas.
Robert, there are certain issues where people
lose their mind. Well, Scott Horton loses his mind on this. Scott Ritter loses his mind on this. Mearsheimer at times loses his mind on Israel.
But what I'm finding is that people are losing their mind over the DeSantis camp are losing their minds over Trump, over Giuliani. We're going to get to it tonight.
Yeah. And January 6th, Steve Dace. I like Steve. He made a bad gamble. He's a betting man. He made a bad choice when he bet on the DeSimp. And rather than just admit that and acknowledge that, still in like delusional land, but don't go so far as to start pretending that Giuliani was getting a fair trial. If you're that illiterate as to what's happening legally, watch the Sunday show, Steve, and you wouldn't end up making really foolish comments on public forums.
Well, you know what? I guess this will be we're going to change the story for the top of the hour because we're in it right now. Do we talk about Giuliani right now, and then you'll give us
Oh,
the list?
sure.
Okay.
And we even have a bonus one to talk about. Owen Schroyer may have a libel claim against the Washington Post. But yeah, we got the Supreme Court. We got January 6th. We got Trump. We got New York. We got another win for Trump on the ballot issues. We got Biden impeached. We got Prince Harry wins a phone hacking case. Might Piers Morgan be implicated? Google loses a big antitrust trial. IBM and Red Hat exposed. I represent one of the whistleblowers, so it can give you a little bit of insight on that. Boston mayor, no whites allowed. That's apparently the new, no Irish allowed in Boston. Now it's no whites allowed in Boston. We got Giuliani getting Alex Jones, which we'll get to in just a second. We got all those food apps trying to hide from liability under an arbitration clause. We got Airbnb bans being upheld by federal courts. Meadows removal that's up before the 11th Circuit. You got a bad draw of judges, unfortunately, but that may be impacted by SCOTUS too. And Owen Schroyer may be able to sue the Washington Post on the same grounds the Covington kids did.
We're gonna start with Giuliani, and then we're gonna end on YouTube and go over to Rumble. Okay, Robert. Giuliani, this is the defamation lawsuit filed by the two, I want to say Georgia. I keep forgetting the state. Is it the Georgia workers?
Yes. Briefly, that's David Mamet's The Secret Knowledge, to those asking in the chat. The David Mamet, great playwright, great screenwriter, great author. 3 Uses of the Knife, one of my favorite books. This is one of his more recent books, taking apart why he left liberalism, about the craziness of wokeism, and the on that aspect. Yes, this is Georgia plaintiffs suing a New York defendant about statements made in Georgia in a D.C. federal court.
Well, okay, so we'll get to you'll make sense of the jurisdiction. It's forum shopping in its purest form. These are the two Georgia workers who Giuliani, made reference to having pulled out briefcases from under the table in the middle of the count. I have to refresh my memory as to what was actually potentially even false versus actually true about all this. Gets sued for defamation and gets Alex Jones exactly like Alex Jones got Alex Jones. He got more Alex Jones actually than Trump did, because Trump had a summary judgment. Giuliani was default verdict for liability because allegedly he failed to produce electronically stored information. And his argument was that I can't produce it anymore because the FBI took my phone and wiped it, and I no longer have access to it. And I don't know the details. I would love to have Giuliani on to explain the details as to whether or not how it happened, whether or not it's a pretext, whatever. The bottom line is he's accused of failing to comply with discovery obligations to produce electronically stored information that the judge is thoroughly convinced is in his possession. The judge, an Obama appointee, I forget his name, but I suspect you'll know.
It's her. It's the chief judge that's caused all the other problems and issued all the other crazy rulings, including the Twitter case, including stealing Trump's attorney-client privilege information. The one that governed the grand jury in the Trump case. It's the most partisan. It's the one that Congresswoman Stefanik recently filed an ethics complaint about because of her public statements cheering on these cases outside of the courtroom. So she's one of the most corrupt partisan judges in America. An honest Congress would impeach her.
And this is her name is Beryl. I just knew Beryl Howley, whatever. If you
former chief judge.
Yeah, she was just accepting an award at some American white-collar worker event where she's basically making public statements about the January 6 cases, the facts, and how basically they're all a bunch of insurrectionists, even the ones that haven't been adjudicated on yet, which is as unethical as anything can get for a judge in the exercise of their duties. So she's the judge. She defaults Giuliani and says, you're not complying with discovery. It's so egregious that even though apparently Giuliani was prepared to concede the statements that he made were false. I don't want to misphrase it. I thought he was prepared to concede that the statements were false while preserving his First Amendment rights to have said them. She says, no, you've defaulted, and it's a liability verdict by default. Plaintiffs don't even have to present evidence to make their case. Boom, guilty. Now let's get into the damages. And I awarded, $100 and some odd million to all these people. There are people out there, Robert, who say, well, all he has to do is comply with discovery. Let's just operate on the basis that Giuliani, in fact, did not comply with discovery. He had the information and refuses to produce it. Can you not explain to people why, especially in the case of a defamation case where all of the lawsuit is based on the statements being publicly made, that's how someone gets defamed, that maybe foreclosed from pleading, preventing from presenting a defense might be the most egregious sanction, but bypassing the plaintiffs even having to prove their case, how does it happen?
Well, first of all, the case had no business in the District of Columbia. It is an utter joke that this case was ever allowed to be brought in the District of Columbia, because the statements were not made in the District of Columbia. The plaintiffs do not reside in the District of Columbia. The defendant does not reside in the District of Columbia. This was the statements weren't intended to impact the reputation of the plaintiffs in the District of Columbia. So the constitutional standard, I'm litigating this currently on behalf of Robert Kennedy in his defamation claim that we brought in New Hampshire. The reason it was brought in New Hampshire is because it's quite clear in our view that the defendant targeted New Hampshire to impact the reputation of Robert Kennedy, to try to hurt and impair his presidential primary campaign at the time in which the statements were made, and reiterated and republished and rebroadcast. And so what the U.S. Supreme Court has said is you can sue and libel under the Constitution. It conforms to due process to allow a state to have jurisdiction over a defendant, even if the plaintiff doesn't reside there and the defendant doesn't reside there, if the intent was to impact the reputation of the plaintiff in that venue. Here, there's no evidence of that. And so the D.C. court had no business presiding over the case. But it's so corrupt and so partisan, it dishonored its own venue requirements and constitutional due process principles to even be involved. They handpicked, cherry-picked the District of Columbia because they know how prejudiced its judicial pool is. They know how prejudiced its court of appeal is. They know how prejudiced its jury pool is. And this case, of course, proves it. Now, the second aspect is, this is what's colloquially called the death penalty sanction. My view is courts should never be given this power ever, period. You have a right to trial by jury. Courts are not at their liberty to eviscerate that. I have long opposed the doctrine of summary judgment. I've long opposed definitely all default judgments, so-called default judgments. Those should be reserved, default judgments, to where the party never appears, doesn't participate in the proceeding at all, knowingly and deliberately. It should never apply to someone who's participating in the proceedings, ever, end of story. I'll give an example. We'll be talking later about the Google case. In Google, they not only didn't produce evidence that was requested, they destroyed it. They deleted it, incriminating chats. Did Google get defaulted? Of course not. So this is much stronger than what happened to Alex Jones, much stronger than what happened with Rudy Giuliani in terms of neither one of them were even accused of destroying or deleting known evidence. Google was proven to have done so. What is the evidentiary sanction the protocol, the process calls for that respects your right to trial by jury and your right to a trial on the merits? It's an evidentiary inference. The judge gets to tell the jury they destroyed this evidence. You can assume that evidence would have had would be really bad against them, and the worst possible inference you can make. That's it. The judges in the courts are weaponizing their power to strip juries of their rights. Now, you have to ask a bigger question, which is, just like in the Alex Jones case, here they had partisan judges in Connecticut and in Texas presiding over Alex Jones cases. Since this has come back up in the news with Alex Jones being reinstated on Twitter to a lot of fanfare by a lot of his supporters, but his critics are screaming about Sandy Hook all over again and lying about what happened in those cases in the process. When you have partisan judges and juries in your pocket, why would the lawyers or litigants in those cases against Alex Jones, why would they demand no trial on the merits? Maybe it's because they know the trial on the merits would prove their claims are false and bogus, which is what the claims against Alex Jones have always been. Most of the things people think Alex Jones said and did, he didn't say and do. And what it is here you have judges that are so paranoid, so terrified, that even jurors that are in their pocket from a partisan perspective against the defendant, they're scared if the world sees the evidence that their whole case will fall apart. So it's the same with Giuliani. Why, if it was so clear that what Giuliani said had no basis in fact and no constitutionally protected opinion behind it, why were both the plaintiffs and the judges so terrified of actually an honest jury pool, one not in D.C., an honest judiciary, which is also not in D.C. on these cases? But why were they so scared that even those judges and juries hearing evidence? This is a federal case, so there wouldn't even be a public video broadcast trial. They were scared of anybody finding out the truth about this election because they know their cases are false. They know their cases are bogus. They know their cases are factually meritless, because otherwise you don't have to do these shenanigans. Now, what it goes to show is what we warned about, and a lot of other people were mute about, which is just like when they used Jones as the template for big tech censorship and deplatforming. We said what they're doing to Alex Jones, they're going to start doing to everyone else. They're going to start stripping you of your right to procedural defenses. They're going to start stripping you of your right to speech outside the courtroom. And they're going to start stripping you of your right to a trial on the merits by a jury of the impartial jury of the community. Used to be jury of your peers. That's the Magna Carta. Unfortunately, that part's not reflected in the Constitution. But a impartial jury of your community is. And this was not Rudy Giuliani's community, the District of Columbia. It wasn't the plaintiff's community either. So they want to strip them of these rights, and they're going to use Alex Jones templates to get away with it. And unless this stops, until a higher court says this is garbage and no more, it's going to continue, and it's going to get a lot worse. That's why Alex Jones has been the canary in the coal mine, not only about things he himself has warned about, which even people like Jimmy Dore had to acknowledge he has an unusual success track record with, but the example of what's been done to him is now they're trying to do it to Giuliani, and now they're trying to do it to Donald Trump, the president of the United States.
What's amazing is that people were watching the Alex Jones trial on the damages, and they were saying, how is he even guilty? Or how is he going to even be found guilty? And then it was like, well, he's already guilty. And people are like, I'm watching the evidence on the damages, and it's basically exonerating him on the merits, but too late, you're past the merits. Donald Trump trial, after the summary judgment, they didn't default verdict Donald Trump, summary judgment. People are looking at that and saying, how is he even liable on the merits when his bank is saying we didn't rely on the statements? We would have given them regardless. We were fighting for his business. And it was like, well, how is he guilty? Too late, he is. And I guess and people are going to retrospectively think they saw a trial on the merits when in fact they didn't, because they bypassed it altogether, and they're doing it to Giuliani.
And to give people the procedural trick courts pull to give summary adjudication, which let's call that what it is, denial of your right to a trial on the merits, and a denial, more importantly, to a jury trial. That's what it is. There was an argument in the New York case about whether he would have ever been entitled to a jury trial anyway. Putting that aside, it's at minimum a right to a trial on the merits. The way judges get around this is they pretend there are no facts in dispute. Quite clearly, anybody who's watched the Trump case know there are facts in dispute. So that is a bogus application of summary judgment. It is a weaponization of judicial power for partisan purposes, being imposed and utilized in a prejudicial manner to justice, which, by the way, historically, that kind of action has been an impeachable action, whether it's a judge or anyone else. The wrongful abuse of police, prosecutorial, or judicial power was, dating back to the English days, considered a high crime and misdemeanor. First person impeached in America was Supreme Court Justice Samuel Chase for his political partisan weaponization of the judiciary to go after his adversaries. And only after he was impeached did the courts get the message, oh, hold on a second. Now, he wasn't removed. He barely survived. But all the courts learned, maybe we got to be careful with our power. If Congress is serious, they need to start talking about bringing impeachment proceedings over any of these individuals, looking at including judges who, by the way, the original Federal Civil Rights Act laws, you know who their principal target was? It wasn't the Klan. It was corrupt partisan state judges and law enforcement. That's who their target was. The federal civil rights laws should be re-examined to go after corrupt partisan judges misusing and abusing their power for partisan and prejudicial reasons. They themselves are green-lighting these cases against Trump on January 6th. Okay, you get to be the recipient of that same method of justice now because you got to establish the precedent for it. But at a minimum, until that happens, these corrupt partisan judges will continue. But what happened to Rudy Giuliani is a joke. That wasn't a trial. It wasn't even a show trial. It was a scam on American justice.
Look at this. Someone replied to my tweet saying, oh, but Giuliani admitted liability is what I believe they said. Let me just make sure. It doesn't even matter what they said. He admitted liability, so there's nothing to try anymore. This is the last paragraph of the judge's order. As discussed above, Giuliani has not engaged in any conduct that constitutes spoliation. Oh, that's kind of relevant. He didn't destroy evidence. However, out of an abundance of caution to avoid any potential controversy, Giuliani has agreed to stipulate the factual aspects of liability as to plaintiff's claim, except damages. The factual elements of the liability, that he said the words that they accuse him of saying that were defamatory. And this is highlighted by the person who's trying to convince me Giuliani admitted liability. While Giuliani does not admit to plaintiff's allegations, he, for the purposes of this litigation only, does not contest the factual allegations, i.e., I said the words. Set aside the legal defenses as to whether or not they're public figures or, single purpose, what do they call them? Single purpose public figures, that they have to prove actual malice. Set aside truth being the defense to the factual elements. The judge, and there's no spoliation, he just didn't
in the context. His intent would go to all the issues with the election. This judge was terrified of the world seeing the truth. So this is where Steve Deace made this dumb comment. Why didn't Rudy dispute things? And Justin Hart cheered in. These simps are destroying.
Why didn't he provide the evidence? Why didn't he provide the evidence to the judge?
Because the judge said you're not allowed to present the evidence. It's like gagging somebody and then saying, "Why aren't you speaking?" I mean, come on. Robert, this is where Deace is not paying attention. Justin Hart is not paying attention. To me, these conservatives are not paying attention because they don't happen to like some of these people or they're not on their side. To the political partisan weaponization of the justice system in ways that destroy the credibility of the integrity of Americans' civil justice system, makes a mockery of it, and endangers all of our liberties in the process.
And I'll play devil's advocate for a bit. Justin Hart comes. Oh, no, it was Stephen Deace who said, come on my show and provide the evidence. And if the judge won't let you do it there, I'm just wondering, the statements that he, I guess, wants him to come back and say are the ones that he's being sued for defamation. I don't know how smart it would be to go on another platform while you're being sued for defamation to make the same statements again. But I don't know what evidence they want from Giuliani. They say, other than the laptop from hell, what else has he shown? Well, he showed the laptop from hell. He made some statements about these two particular poll agents pulling a bag out from under a table, counting votes twice, whatever. We all saw the video. I don't know what more evidence they want him to present, as if to suggest that he voluntarily refused to provide it to the judge.
Oh, and there's no better evidence than the fact that the judge wouldn't allow him to present it. If, in fact, this evidence would impeach him, if this evidence was insufficient, the judge doesn't need to go through the procedural shenanigan of denying him the opportunity to present it. A judge only does this when the judge doesn't want the world to know the truth. If the truth was on the judge's side, the judge doesn't need to prohibit evidence of the truth from coming into the courtroom, does she?
He obviously appeals this. I mean, it's a no-brainer. With the award of 100 and
another part is these absurd verdicts, which started with the Alex Jones case. Billions of dollars. Are you kidding me? That was ludicrous. People like Megyn Kelly should be ashamed of cheering on some of those absurd verdicts. I get she's sensitive on Sandy Hook issues because of her controversy from NBC, but that's no excuse, no pardon for cheering on preposterous verdicts that make a mockery of the justice system. People who suffered no deaths, who know no one who died, were given over $100 million. That is ridiculous.
And for things that Alex Jones didn't even say, they were getting, that FBI agent was being called names before Jones had anything to say about it.
Exactly. Jones never even mentioned him. So somebody that Jones never mentioned that was being attacked for reasons that had nothing to do with Jones, before Jones had anything to do with Sandy Hook, gets over $100 million. These are absurd verdicts that make a mockery of our justice system, complete mockery of the justice system. So they've got to start doing something about this and stopping this overt political partisan weaponization of the entire legal system, civil and criminal. And just as those cases, the Trump New York case has been a classic example of that, but so have all the other Trump cases. So have most of the January 6 cases. And now both are up before the Supreme Court of the United States.
And we will get to that in a minute on Rumble exclusively after we end on YouTube. But before we end on YouTube, I just thank all of the super chats and get through these quickly. Cheryl Gage says, rocks are nice. I paid in hugs and kisses when babysitting the grandkids. You'll get there someday. The amount of people who didn't get my joke, this is on Viva Random on Rumble, that I got a gift for my wife for babysitting our own kids. The amount of these people, you don't babysit your own kids. It's called parenting. Get a sense of humor. Anybody who said that to me. U.S. government paid an Instagram influencer known as Benito Skinner to do a pro-jab skit with Jen Psaki. Ooh, that was from John S. Then we got John S. I knew all about this back when it was happening. Used to habitually leave my phone at home. Not sure. I have to refresh my memory what that's about. Hey, Viva, just got a few shirts. Loving the merch. Argyle Antiques. Thank you very much.
VivaFry.com with the E before the I.
Frei. It means freedom in German. Freiheit. China Uncensored and Serpent ZA have exposed that Chinese agents also pay influencers to make the CCP look good.
How is it? Anytime you say anything in German, it just doesn't sound nice. It sounds mean and scary.
It's the hard R. Freiheit. If you
that's it. Yeah.
En français, it's like a Freiheit is much better than Freiheit.
Yeah, the French sounds beautiful, wonderful. It's like the Russians. You ever hear Russians talking in Russian? You think they're wanting to shoot each other, and actually they're being nice to one another.
Barnes, I got this one. I got the legal guidance. B-Man Rudy has to pay $148 million to two plaintiffs went to D.C. instead of Georgia. I wonder why. And Beryl Howell was the judge. It's just corruption. You should all go watch. I'm going to do a breakdown of that speech that Beryl Howell gave at that event. It's just amazing. Barnes, since you mentioned Scott Ritter a while back, I've been meaning to ask, what was he wrong about considering the Iraq war?
Yeah, he thought the Iraqi army would win. That's what he was.
That's a problem. Well, yeah. I mean, in a way, you could say they did win since they won the war of attrition in the U.S., I guess.
But not the Iraqi army. That was a whole. The Iraqi army disbanded. That was the error. There was many he made in that context. But I'll do a whole breakdown of Scott Ritter on tomorrow's Bourbon with Barnes at vivabarneslaw.locals.com.
And we got one last one from Shofar, which you all know what that means. Why did Speaker Johnson meet with Paul Ryan, or did he?
He did. He did. There's photos of it. I mean, because Paul Ryan has a lot of power still in Washington. Sits on the board at Fox.
Okay. And now what we're going to do, people, I'll give everybody the
guy
link.
that Tucker Carlson is implicitly bashing in one of his recent interviews when he's talking about, Megyn Kelly, about people at Fox that will say one thing to your face and backstab you behind you. My guess is he's talking about Paul Ryan.
Okay. Link to Locals, link to Rumble are there. And now we are going to end on Rumble. Move on over to the free speech platform, people, and talk January 6th and Trump cases that are going to SCOTUS. Booyah. 3, 2, 1. We're done.